to cultivate such a deep daily relationship with failure. The number one compliment is how it all falls apart if I don't just like get a good picture once in a while. Isn't it just such a pleasure to walk up Fifth Avenue? It just feels like my old friend.
Yo, we're back with another Walkie Talkie. I got the homie Daniel here today. Daniel, for those who don't know who you are, introduce yourself, let the people know what you do, where you're from.
My name is Daniel Arnold. I'm a 43-year-old man, as of now, 2023. This is October, maybe the 22nd, my friend Jonah's birthday. I have become a professional photographer after many years of obsessively just walking around this city, picking up scraps, catching it looking weird, laughing at it. And now I'm like deep into a very irrational, overcommitted hobby / habit of wandering around and keeping that story going, trying to keep that little spark alive that made me sick in the beginning and has kept me sick so far. Well, I moved here 20 years ago, and the sickness has evolved, but I'd say it took hold pretty much right away. I don't want to give all the credit to New York because things have changed along the way, but New York definitely started it rolling properly.
You've been here for 20 years, basically been taking photos the entire time.
Yeah.
It feels like everything's kind of been done, especially in New York. What keeps you wanting to do this?
I don't know. I mean, I guess that's an evolving answer too. At this point, it's just like the pictures have so little to do with it. It's like, it's more just this kind of guiding light type thing where, you know, it's very hard and rare for me to get something now where I'm like, oh, this is exciting and new. You know, I don't even know if I'm good at it anymore, frankly. But I do know that kind of trusting the addiction, trusting the ritual, trusting this like random thing that took hold of me that has changed the way that I think and changed my life and my experience of the world. Not to like beat a dead horse here, but I don't know, I just trust it. I trust that until it leads me to something else, you know, I just still think it's important for me to get up and put myself in the world every day.
Here's a pretty simple question for you that I don't know if I can't recollect hearing an answer, but why do you still shoot film?
Let me give you an unnecessarily long answer. Because I happen to be in this random obsessive process right now of going through all the archives of my phone pictures. And it's been like maybe 4 or 5 days and I haven't gotten through 2012 yet. And it's really interesting. First of all, it shouldn't be a surprise, but it is a surprise that, I mean, 2012 was like a foundational year for me where I was working in a cubicle, doing like kind of corporate creative work, and Instagram just started like bubbling up under me. I'm like, nobody knew what Instagram was. And suddenly I had all this momentum, and I was burnt out of my job, and I quit my life. Old story. But I haven't looked at those pictures. So much of those happened because I suddenly had this camera on my phone, and I could take pictures that I've always been scared to take, and sort of like prove to myself that it was worth getting over the hump of fear. Another thing that I consider and notice looking at those photos is that around that same time, I don't know the exact timeline of it, sorry, we'll find you, we'll come back. Around then sometime, maybe it was before that, but at some point my sister sent me this little Yashica T5 that she'd found at a thrift store for $2. With a little note that said, for a change of perspective, something like that. That was kind of my first step past the phone in that moment, where I was like, okay, I'm really hooked on this thing. I'm really obsessed. It's all I want to do. I don't know, I convinced myself that the move was that I had to figure out how to make that same kind of moment or energy happen, but with a proper camera. And I think that there's an arbitrariness there, that just like that first moment of discovery and experimentation was on film. You know, it just made it feel like from the beginning like it was the language. You know, so many of these things you learn the answers to just because you're like walking and walking and walking on alone and thinking and thinking and thinking. And I think the thing that really suits film well to this way of doing things, it's just like there's no exit. With a digital camera, you know, I can kind of like track my progress through the day. I can try a picture and see how it went, make sure my settings are right, try it again, reframe it. And I don't know, I heard myself say this recently, and it's felt true, that digital photography is a conversation with success, and film photography is with failure. You know, with film, I don't have the option to be precious. I don't have the option to be calculating, and it really suits the state of mind of the wanderer to just kind of have the like one sort of half-assed crack at it and stay loose and be in the mode of letting go of things, and then, you know, a day or two later you get a surprise. Either the surprise of heartbreak, which is the more frequent one, or like, damn, I didn't even see that. And so in that regard, I mean, as it sort of like trickles into the rest of life, I also find that it is kind of radical and super useful to cultivate such a deep daily relationship with failure. It really like loosens everything up, makes life feel kind of more adventure-y, because I'm not worried about getting it right. I mean, like, obviously, to some degree, I don't want to be a failure, but I accept the possibility. And I also just have like learned over and over and over and over again, basically every day now for almost half my life, that failing is the process. Failing is the only way to get to not fail. I mean, the street photography thing is kind of incidental. That's more by virtue of addiction than anything else. The street's just available. Like, this is just like the perfect kind of fix that's always sitting right outside my door, and free therapy, whether I need it or not. A nice thing about that, and about the urge to like constantly self-examine and wonder if I'm fucking myself over, is I do pretty perpetually feel like I need to be evolving. And I've found my way to this decision that that's not a thing that I know how to do on purpose, or that I can like really choose. And I think that ends up being an answer to a lot of the questions that naturally come up. Like, what sustains this? Why keep going when you have every picture in the damn world? Why keep shooting film? Why have this endless dance with failure? And I think it's just like, that's kind of like the petri dish of evolution. Find a new thing or a new angle or a new point of view to be surprised by and to get hooked on.
On the topic of evolution,
yeah.
How often are you actually going back and reviewing your work and learning from it?
Constantly. I mean, I don't know about the frequency of actual learning, but I mean, I look back at least as much as I shoot, maybe more. And part of that is that I like have built in tasks for myself where I'm forced to engage and re-engage and rethink old work. I made myself this website project that will never be done, that potentially includes just like everything, but nothing like looking at everything to make you want to get rid of most of it. Along with the taste and the technique and the technical proficiency that changes. Also just like the idea of when you were successful totally changes. Like there are pictures that I used to be so proud of and I'm like, what are you, out of your mind? That's trash. But that was an interesting thing. I mean, part of, I think what got us out here today, specifically after, I don't know how many months and years of talking about it, was that there's this old video that Josh Johnson put out.
Great video. It's really good. Really well done. Really inspiring.
Yeah.
The whole series in general.
But for me, like checking in publicly for the first time in a while with something that was filmed 5 years ago felt really uncomfortable. And a funny thing, a funny detail of that, there's this section where we're wandering around San Gennaro Festival and I'm sort of like spitball theorizing that, and I mentioned that somebody has recently told me that the reason that we do the thing we do, like go around catching people having intimate moments or real moments in public, is to like address a lack of intimacy in our own lives. And when I gave that interview, I'd been single for like, I don't know, 8 years or something, in a very determined way. I was like, this is it. I did a lot of rhapsodizing about having discovered a way to experience love alone. Like 3 days after we filmed that, I met my girlfriend. It's just interesting to think about how those sort of fulfilling life choices in a way compromise this lonely sickness. That was kind of like a romantic space filler when I said it. Like I really think that the nature of catching those moments and gravitating to stuff like that is that, you know, we're making stories, intimacy, any kind of like public display of emotion, a uniform, any like recognizable transaction like that is just it's a story shortcut. You have a reflex for that picture, you take it a million times, and once in a while, it like falls into a frame of other things and becomes a bigger story. It's funny to be reconfronted with the camera and like in this period of wondering if my path has become boring. It's so much less of a performance now. It's super liberating, but I don't know how much that sort of like pressure and captivity and dissatisfaction contributed to the hunger. Like a performance is sort of by nature is thirsty and desirous. Maybe that's part of having a million pictures of everything, that you just let things go by and not worried about it, not worried about proving to you that I'm willing to like pop up in someone's face or.
Yeah, you said in interviews before that coming home with a good photo or something to bring home for like your own memory is kind of more important in your early days,
yeah.
Right? What do you think was behind that importance that is not there now?
I think maybe I felt like I guess I already said it. Like there was something to prove. Also, like the addiction was more specific. And I think maybe that, I haven't thought through this before, but that makes sense as an Instagram thing. Because having that prize at the end of the day, what that means in an Instagram economy is like you have a reason to go to the community and present yourself. It's like, look, you know, look at this great kill I got out there today, to put it in hunter-gatherer terms. And now that it's really just for me, there aren't those celebrations anymore, which is maybe kind of sad. Maybe we're gonna have to like change everything after this conversation. I don't know, I like it. And the rhythm that I have now is like, it's very drifty. I mean, the quality of it is very much unknown to me. I feel like a farmer. Like I just go and do the work every day and I pile it up, and you know, every time I get a roll, I make an edit of the roll, put it in a folder. At the end of the month, I take all the work from the month and make an edit of the month. I look back at the month throughout the rest of the year, trimming away at it as I can see it better. Sometimes I make edits where I draw certain things of multiple months together. At the end of the year, I make an edit of the whole year. Nobody really sees it. Yeah, it's interesting. I guess it's like kind of an experiment with value. Like this thing that felt so public and so conversational, to see like how it survives without that.
I do wonder, like, what because you probably have a lot of work that's kind of just sitting around on those hard drives in those monthly folders.
Yeah.
Like, is there a vision for that in the future, or do you think it'll just, when it's time, you'll know, kind of thing?
I mean, I expect that to be something that keeps changing. The way I feel about it now, I don't really think of it as like a body of work necessarily that I'm like waiting to unveil at all. It's just kind of like this long, rambling, like language exercise, or like a diary. And the way that I have engaged with it recently, which again, I wonder, my constant question is this actually something I'm interested in? Or is this like avoiding confrontation, avoiding engagement, avoiding accountability? But I like to hand the keys off to somebody else. Like I got a show opening at the end of the week, which by the time anybody sees this will have been months ago. But this show came to be because somebody who I think is an interesting, talented photographer who has absolutely nothing in the little shared slot of the Venn diagram with me. Like we have such different relationships with the world, different relationships with working, but I'm a fan of his work. Ethan James Green, I don't know why I'm not saying his name. He took an interest. He said we should do a show. And to me, the idea of handing the pile to someone like that, being like, okay, what do you see? Is so much more interesting to me than my own kind of attempt at expressing some thread in what I've done.
Do you find it weird that the show comes across not in your voice in any way?
Yeah, there's always tension there. There's always big temptation to disown it. I'm used to that now, and I see it coming, and I think I've gotten better at managing that, or at least at being ready for it. I don't know, I mean, like, it's still my work. It's just a way that I arrived at talking about it in my neurotic digestion of Pickpocket is that instead of sort of like taking this body of work and taming it and giving it meaning and finding a thread or whatever, I don't know, it's a way to make a show or make a body of work that functions the same way that the work does. It still surprises me. It's still like based on chance. It's still letting kind of external forces determine what the work is, even when the work is already done. I don't think it comes from a place of laziness. It's more just like acceptance of my lack of control. And rather than fighting it, I try to like kind of harness it.
I guess it should be stated for those who don't know, Pickpocket, your book,
Yeah.
was kind of put in the hands of the Safdie brothers and the people over at Alara.
Yeah.
So that's what we're kind of referencing.
Yeah. And there's, I mean, basically, I don't know if there is any public presentation of my work that isn't that to some degree. Almost.
Your kind of origin story or introduction to photography, it was never something that like you seeked out or seeked inspirations or saw like Gary Winogrand's work or like any like inspiration kind of hit you. You kind of just like fell into it, right? But what about like photographers along the way? Like since you've been into it, discovering photographers, is there anybody or any book?
Right on time. Ta-da! That guy. Yeah, that's incredible. And here we are at Miriam Friedlander Way. And not just to play into the coincidence at all. That's genuinely my answer. And Friedlander too. I mean, Friedlander in a much different way. Friedlander I find inspiring just because he seems to be so in control of being so good at something that I find to be only possible by relinquishing control. Robert Frank, I think about. Like, I hate to say it on record, but the truth is, like, I don't even care that much about his work, about his actual photographs. I mean, like, I don't dislike them or anything, but the reason that he is the answer, and that he's the one person that I think I've ever thought, like, I wish he was alive. I really need to talk to him. I don't know. I just really admire and relate to the way that he navigated his experience of finding his way to the work, letting the work take him, and then having the world take the work from him and his reaction to the world, and then his like standing at kind of the top of it and being like, fuck this. I don't care, I'm gonna go do something else. This like, how many pictures do I need?
I do want to talk about kind of the cross section of, I don't want to say pose, but like photos that you shared that come from like movie sets or sets in general, and it being kind of shared alongside of just like your Candid work.
Yeah.
And how do you think that kind of plays into like your audience, and do you think there's something that can be misconstrued with those being shared without any context?
Sure. I mean, I guess it depends.
Does it matter?
That's a good question. That's the easiest one. No, I don't think it matters. I mean, look, I think for me, the kind of like enduring appeal of taking assignments it's part of the game. Even if I'm on a movie set and everything's set up to be interesting, or I have access to like a big famous person, or, I can understand the like faux ethical objection to putting that alongside a candid street photo. But the reason that I get those jobs, well, I don't know if it's the reason that I get those jobs, but the reason that I take those jobs is like, I don't go to a movie set and suddenly turn on a whole different set of skills. Like, what I do is what I do. I don't go, have a fashion job and go and be a fashion photographer. I go, and even if I'm completely in control of the room and everybody is just there to fulfill my vision, I don't go in, don't tell, but I don't go into that room with a vision. I go into that room with my camera down here and genuinely forget that if I don't catch something happening naturally, I can say, do that again. And everyone will stop what they're doing and do it again. I still function no matter what as the same photographer in any of those circumstances. And so obviously, if I'm taking pictures on a movie set, I have opportunities to kind of tap into some existing narrative or some existing blocking. But first of all, I'm playing the same game that I play on the street. I'm still looking at this sort of banquet table of ingredients and trying to figure out what I can make. And honestly, a cheap picture where I'm not like the architect of some miraculous accident. I mean, architect is the wrong word, just like the receptacle. I don't even care about those pictures. Like, even if they're great and perfect. There's something, it's not a, I don't know, the satisfaction, the emotional attachment isn't based on the like rules of photography. It's the circumstances of getting the picture. What I really love about my job is that I've been walking more or less in the same circles for 20 fucking years. And yes, I still find this city surprising and compelling and full of weird energy and great personality and worthy of scouring still on a daily basis. But it's a real gift to be thrown a giant curveball in a new backdrop and a whole new set of anxieties that make it hard to think straight. And I don't know, just being given a totally different emergency to go make sense of. I don't know. For me, I don't have a second thought or a moment of inner conflict about bringing that work back to the big pile. It's part of it. I understand that like there are different standards and whatever. I don't know. The one that comes to mind off the top of my head, because it's kind of the most recent one that a lot of people reacted to, is the guy stepping over the dead horse. And that's not an instance of me being given access to a movie set. That's an instance of me walking up Ludlow, where they happened to be filming, I think it was The Nick. They had turned 4 blocks of the Lower East Side into the 1800s, so naturally I'm gonna walk through with my camera. And I got lucky as hell. I got to step through a miracle of this like inscrutable, real looking moment where a guy just happened to be like smoking a cigarette in his doorway before going to work. And he happens to live on a street that's become a movie set, and he has to step over a prop horse to go to work. I mean, this explanation ruins that picture. It doesn't ruin it. It's like, you know, it's nice to appreciate the circumstances that led to such a unlikely thing existing, but I don't feel like that's any less candid or interesting or, you know, worthy of the pile than, you know, like, oh, just because it was, you know. It's not that different than that. It's just like that won't be a good picture.
The photo of the Christmas tree going through the windshield. Candid?
Not candid. That's a good example.
That was such a good photo. That was one of the photos I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah. That's a cheat for sure. I mean, that's a scene in a movie. That's, what's it called? Owen Klein movie about the comic book guy. Funny pages, maybe? I got asked to do stills one night. It was kind of a mess. I don't know that anybody even used those pictures. And yeah, that's one where like, it looks super crazy. And I don't know, does it matter? I mean, it's funny to think about that because I have that instinct too. Where like I see something and there's some doubt and I want to debunk it and like defang the picture and be like, nah, that's not the picture. That's not a picture. They're scamming. But like, I don't know what's the nature of that. Where does that come from? I feel like that's just like insecurity.
I think that's the mark of a good photo too, or a good photographer where you're just like, no freaking way that happened for this guy.
Yeah, I used to always say that, like the number one compliment is how. And that's not a question that should be answered. And ideally, it's a question that doesn't have an answer. Ideally, just like, how? I mean, like, I just walked by. This just was. This just is. I mean, it's kind of a fun game to play that you collect enough of those genuine, uncanny, impossible alignments of things, and it sort of activates all the less real stuff. Like ideally, it's, you're not doing like picture-to-picture evaluations of your worth. You're like building a world. And for me, one of like my favorite games in building the world is filling it with impossible shit. Because you make enough proof and it becomes not ordinary necessarily, but like it's the nature of the world. If there's a world where someone is naturally stepping over a fake dead horse as they go to work, that's a world where there could also be a guy who was impaled by a Christmas tree through his windshield. I don't know what made me think of it recently. I think I was maybe it was working on the website, and I had this like very obvious kind of ping of clarity that if the guy who took the like early, 2013 proof of the world being insane, if he could know that he was going to be responsible for stacking up all these other impossible moments, what would that guy even think? I mean, not to like celebrate my moments over anybody else's, but I'm the one who will have to deal with.
Honestly, in the same way, because you were early on in the resurgence of street, obviously you didn't invent street photography, the genre.
No.
But you were like, you had an impact in repopularizing it, right?
Well, definitely I see my voice all over everything.
Yeah, but like in that way, your voice is kind of like a coaching tree, right? Where like these other people who are inspired by you have also created these like impossible moments.
Yeah, totally.
It kind of expands your impossible universe.
Yep. Which gives me a little bit of a goosebump, I won't lie to you. Because like when it first started to take hold, I did have an articulated fantasy that if I could be like a high school teacher and I could just like deputize as many people as possible, like sort of give them loose instructions on how to do it and what to look for. And because obviously like all of us have the crushing reality that you're gonna miss 99% of your life and not gonna be there for almost the whole world. And especially here, like every time you sit at home, you're missing a million things. I don't know, so I ramble, but I had this sort of fantasy that I could deputize an army of photographers to go and like make proof of the impossible world. And here we are. I don't allow myself many breaks from the humility that prevents me from having such a grandiose observation, but it's kind of a thing. It kind of did happen. Oh, thanks for bringing me to that nice moment. But I'm get so lost in these thoughts. But a nice function in that regard of having something that's widely imitated is there's like nowhere comfortable to sit. It makes that failure thing really functional, and like it's worth living that because you got to keep changing. And like if I got tricked into a place where it was good enough for me to just keep taking that same picture over and over again, that wouldn't be good for me. That wouldn't be an interesting life. A weird thing that I've noticed recently is that in the beginning, I had no like formal photographic vocabulary beyond what was just kind of natural from living in a visual world. And now that I'm all these years inundated in this photographic community, and my feed for the most part wouldn't surprise you. It's a lot of people walking the same routes I'm walking, taking the same kind of pictures. And I feel like I've like unknowingly drifted to this place where more than I ever expected it to be the case, my pictures have become sort of like about photography on some level. And I don't like that. It's scary to put so much time and effort and imply so much meaning into a thing that's gonna outlast you. And even if nobody ever looks at it again, to attach these like confessionals to the work feels, it's like a little scary. And when I think about it from that perspective, I want to just shut up forever. Just like never say another thing. Like in that regard, I feel like having had this period of popularity has been a great disservice to my work. But that's demented and not true, because it gave me so much audacity, not to mention time and space and income to indulge. I don't know, it's scary to attach all these thoughts. Like those pictures are so much more interesting without a photographer. Because, I mean, you got to make one up. It's interesting to have the implication of a person, but that's kind of, I think, the dream. And it gets really complicated by the living ego that wants to like confess and be seen and participate in the story and be talked to as if they have some authority in the world. When really the dream is like, I mean, the Vivian Meyer dream. Let me just make a pile of mind-boggling pictures that just turn up in an attic somewhere. It just threads an impossible needle of purity. Like purity you couldn't dream of. Maybe nobody even ever told her she was good at it. Maybe she never even knew. And from this position of like overshare, micro celebrity, social media future, I think that there are elements of what she went through that are universal and that are still available to all of us. But that purity is just a dream. It's just gone. There's so much, isn't there? So much. Woo. Whose birthday? You? Happy birthday.
One day out of two.
Is your birthday?
Yeah.
How old?
10.
You're 10? That's a big one. Double digits. Happy birthday. I hope you have a great day.
So do you develop your roles instantly? Like once you're done with the role, you'll go drop it off?
Yeah. Sometimes I try to have a little restraint about it and give it some time, but I got no patience. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's positives and negatives, but I do think there is something sort of essential and processy about like constantly being in the loop with what I'm doing. I've always thought that was kind of the real hook of the addiction, is not so much the walking or the shooting, but having something new to look at every day. I don't know, it's funny. There'll be times where I'm like deep, long depressed, and I can't tell anybody why. I'm just like, everything just sucks. And I get a good picture and I'm like, oh man, you fucking idiot. That's all it was. How stupidly vulnerable I've made it myself, that it all falls apart if I don't just like get a good picture once in a while.
You think that just shows how much you care about the work, or?
Yeah, I think so. And in that regard, like the fact that I'm sort of less encumbered by that problem lately, I think is maybe not the best sign. And it's because of working for hire. The necessity for just like letting it go in a work scenario is I don't know, it's so much more a thing. I did not say that well, but like I'm just much more in the habit now of getting to the end of a job where a lot of the time the only thing I have control of in the situation is me. There's like a bunch of other creative voices kind of dictating things that I don't agree with. And I just have to find my way out of a mess, which is a fun problem still. It does put me in a position a lot where I have to just like let go a ton. And be like, you know what? This is fine. They like it. I wouldn't choose it for myself, but it's fine. And I think maybe being more in that state of mind. Hi. Yeah, you're want proof? You are in a nice spot. It's not digital. It's film. This is how you want to be remembered? You're very pretty. Oh, you want a sad one?
I am.
You're sad.
I am.
Okay, here we go.
Club.
What's your name?
My name is Lisa.
Lisa? I'm Daniel.
It's a pleasure.
Nice to meet you. I hope your day gets better.
Thank you.
White Claw should help. No, that just never happens. But how are you gonna turn a person down if they want their picture taken? Damn.
So if you are not in the mood to take photos or to go out, do you still go for your walks, or do you still go out and take photos?
No, I still do. I mean, it's a funny moment for the question because I've been sick, and I've been sick in a way that has really kept me inside. I don't know, from this very moment where this is the first time I've gotten to take a nice like juicy walk in a while, it does feel like I'm sort of out of practice, but not because I'm like giving myself a break or easing off of it. It's just like, for whatever reason, there's been a string of extenuating circumstances where I just haven't been able to commit the way I want to.
So do you find yourself kind of getting frustrated when certain things start to pile up and events in life start getting in the way of like your photography?
Yeah, in a way. The thing that ends up triggering that feeling is that in the absence of having long walks to take or new stuff to look at, I'll focus more on old stuff. I don't know if I can like get old stuff together in a new way that's sort of like invigorating. It makes me itchy to work. And also, I mean, I've noticed this in the past couple of days, past couple of weeks, like to be this deep in October, I mean, like I'm operating sort of with this running tally in my head of like how many rolls I shot in October last year, how many rolls I shot in October the year before. And I've done some jobs where there's a lot of rolls, but there's nothing on those rolls that I take home. And yeah, nothing for the pile. And it's kind of alarming how little I've been able to do this month. But I think it's good for it to ebb and flow a bit. I mean, I also have this sort of formless creeping feeling lately that I don't know what shape it would take or what it would be, but I do think it'd be interesting to try something else. Not like something altogether else, but I don't know, like some different approach. I get a bug in my head more often lately that like, and I think this is true no matter what the next thing ends up looking like, even if it's more of the same forever and ever and ever. But, I mean, I keep saying it, this has been so, without meaning for it to be, it's been so distinctly an education. And it does feel, at the 10-year mark, which is also a 20-year mark, I don't know, like it makes me curious. Like what else could I do with this skill that I kind of got tricked into honing? There's no escaping this.
Yeah.
Like no matter what you throw yourself into, I think maybe there's escaping like a frothy level of obsession, but like this is still gonna be on the way to everywhere you go. And it's still gonna be a nightmare to face it without a camera. Because the world without a camera is just like, it's just too exciting.
How would you define greatness?
I feel like that's a hard one to answer honestly, and I will try. I don't think that my rejection of that model is an act. And I really do think it's true. I've said it a million times that like the number one benefit of this sort of momentary micro fame, whatever you want to call it, is really finding out how little it means or matters and like changes anything. Doesn't make you better at what you do. If anything, it makes you worse. So greatness, God, I don't know. That's a good question. It's really hard to answer. I mean, personally, I've really pushed that out of my mind because I don't find it useful. I find it destructive. And I wish I had a good answer because it's really interesting to think about. For me, I think greatness is for someone else. I feel like you don't get to experience your own greatness. And if you do, maybe you're not that great. Yeah, I don't know. I think greatness is something that is assigned to you by someone else. And to me, it means genuinely, no like cool guy, modesty. It means the same to me as, or less, as some like troll shit talker. It's the same thing. Like, oh, these pictures just get worse and worse. That means more to me than you're gonna be in a museum. I think in a textbook way, it's about the endurance of the work. You know, how much how much you manage to speak for and speak of a time and how much it lasts. But I'm sure that, I mean, there just isn't room in our minds for all the greatness that I'm sure there has been. I don't know. To me, it feels like really unquestionably not the thing to aspire to. Ah! What a fun world.
What's your relationship with like imposter syndrome?
I feel sort of past it. I mean, I don't feel like any kind of expert or authority on anything, but I've put in a lot of time. The thing for me that combats imposter syndrome is having seen enough of the rare, desired, exclusive world to know that there's no, I mean, like, nobody knows anything. Nobody knows anything. Those spaces where a person would be inspired to feel like an imposter are not worthy of that feeling. And, you know, certainly I still get nervous and intimidated, and I'm in positions where, you know, I always want to do a good job. I always want to, you know, up the ante, live up to my expectations of myself. But yeah, the imposter thing just, I don't know, just nothing really feels like it matters enough to be worthy of that feeling anymore. You know, I don't feel like the stories that some people, or the way that some people would look at me or think of me, I don't think they're accurate. I don't think that I'm worthy of, you know, that kind of mythology that I think I get sometimes. But not because I think I'm an imposter, just because, I don't know, just nothing seems like that big of a deal. I mean, really, the reality, it's not imposter syndrome, it's just like what it is. But like most of the time, that's gonna sound a lot like imposter syndrome. But most of the time I'm like, nobody fucking knows anything. This work is trash. Like, I'll keep doing it. I'm interested in continuing to do it, but to have made anything more of it than just like the rambling musing of some guy on the street just feels ridiculous most of the time. Thank God. Can you imagine if you believed your own hype?
I know people that do.
Yeah. Well, I wish them the end of that situation. I mean, isn't it just such a pleasure to walk up Fifth Avenue? It just feels like my old friend. It has nothing to do with anybody hiring me or liking me or whether my pictures are good or not. It's just such a nice byproduct of getting obsessed that you get to have. I don't know, it's like a physical experience of walking up Fifth Avenue. It just feels so nice to be here. It feels like, in a really diluted way, I don't know, you spend enough time doing this shit and you start to feel this sense of ownership. Oh, I know this guy. Not real ownership, it just feels like, I don't know, that 55th is a particular one. The darkness of 55th and 5th, oh, it's so cozy. Like, it gives me a homesick feeling to think about it. But I guess that's with or without a camera. This city just inspires a lot of romantic attachment. I also haven't been up here in a minute, so I'm just feeling romantic. Man, I've really crossed over into such a sentimental experience of this. I'm feeling very grateful. Hello, my friend. May I have 2 espressos, please? Like, it's not necessarily the makings of an interesting interview. It's not like sexy or exciting at all, and not what people would want to think. But it is such a romance with the city.
I think you have to have it for doing it so long,
Yeah.
right?
And it really I really just felt so overtaken by it.
Does that come often now? Or is that like something that's kind of escaping you?
I haven't had it for a minute.
I wonder why. Why do you think that kind of just came up out of nowhere?
I mean, we're really in the zone. This is really like peak seductive New York, to me. I think that like chasing the glory, unsustainable. Chasing some kind of like artistic fame, unsustainable. Followers, clout, making content. Like none of that stuff really sticks. I feel like there's a thing that comes before it, and it's like, it's a thing that I'm like, have been scared to even try to articulate. But I've been thinking about because of the wrong side of the lens, because of the intimacy thing, and then like lo and behold, 3 days later, I fall in love. I feel like that's the long game. The long game trick is there's got to be love, which is hard because there's so much bitterness and exhaustion and disgust and degradation and indignity built into time and to like attempting any kind of public facing thing. And that's what I think about when I think about having to evolve. Like in the beginning when I tried to talk about this, I'd be like, yeah, I found this way to feel in love alone. And it was such a miraculous discovery and felt like such a magic trick. And then it didn't really feel that way anymore, but I don't know, that feels like the compass point.
You tend to post photos on your Instagram and take them down.
Yeah.
What's the reason behind that, if there is one?
I mean, I used to do it a lot more. Now I just don't post that much. But I don't know, I don't think it means what comes across. Like it's not out of insecurity or like not standing by the photo. I don't know, I just think it's nice for a thing to come and go. And so much of the reason that I would put something on Instagram now is about just like a passing thought. It's like of or about a moment, and then that moment's gone, and I'm like, all right, this doesn't need to be up here anymore. I don't know, maybe I'm like less consciously like put upon by like the meaning that's attached to my stupid Instagram that I don't want to mean anything, and the idea of it being some like important place is just such a, I don't know, it just makes me want to rebel against it with everything I got. And I don't even mean to I don't think that like it's unworthy of my picture. Like I don't think my picture is any more or less trash than Instagram necessarily. I just feel like for me specifically in my moment in whatever trajectory, it just feels like a sucker move to let Instagram mean anything.
Yeah. You have a favorite photo of yours?
No. I would love to, but I don't. I mean, I guess there's like a greatest hits sort of body that feels like came before the corruption of people telling me I was good at something. And before I spent enough time to have any kind of like refinement technically come into it, there's just this like sort of brash, unapologetic, really wanting it kind of era. And I don't think any of it would surprise you. It's like, I feel like it's the work that is thought of as my work, which sometimes makes me feel like my old guy work is like a defeat. Because now it's like way too much to ask for favorites. There's just so much now. And I guess that's kind of been by design the move that like, I don't know, that's like that's the strategy now, is to drown out any possibility of purpose in just like in ritual, which is weird. It's a weird kind of like sacrificial anti-greatness kind of move. But I feel good about it. It feels right to me. I don't know, I wonder if that would be, if I would feel differently if I was still like going to the committee with the pictures on a regular basis and having other people tell me they were good or bad.
Finish the sentence. I take photos because.
I take photos because I made a big, thoughtful, kind of dramatic declaration of it a few years ago, which I stand by. And it was kind of like my declaration of evacuating my post in the midst of kind of the beginning of the Black Lives Matter chapter of COVID. And the answer then wasn't even that I take pictures because I carry a camera because it makes me brave. It makes me brave, and it turns up my curiosity. It just reminds me to notice the world and enjoy the world in a way that I wouldn't necessarily remember to if not for playing this game all the time of trying to catch it looking meaningful. And that's like, I think that's true. Some interesting garbage. Yeah. I mean, I'm also hopelessly addicted, and it's just a great dodge against death and meaninglessness and all the other absurdity that's just at the top of every page, to turn the whole world into this really fun game that you can always play even laying in bed. I take pictures because it's really fun. Thanks, lady.
Yo, that's gonna do it for this episode of Walkie Talkie with
That's it?
Daniel.
Damn, I got so much more in me. Thanks for walking with me, Paulie.
No, thank you,
Wait,
man.
did you know he's not actually Paulie? His name's Paul.
Let the people know where they can show you some love.
Okay, well, I don't like love that much, so, you know, don't go crazy, but I got a website called danielarnold.com that is a very impolite, unaccommodating kind of website. So maybe you should go and, I don't know, see what you think.
All right, man, appreciate it.
I appreciate you.
Until the next time.
Yeah, until maybe tomorrow.
Peace.
Now when they see us in the streets, all they wanna do is take pics, and I'm like, okay.